Welcome to the chaos sector. All right, we're the bad guys. We're causing drama in the true crime community. All this bickering only takes everyone's attention away from the case and the justice for those housemates. You're right. Let's keep moving forward. You must realize, though, there is this thing called integrity. We work hard to present our ideas, opinions, theories, analysis, breakdowns, you name it, all to inform the viewers we're speaking to right now. Someone referred to us as crime sleuths. We are not any type of category. Again, we focus on the truth, and that's pretty much it. If you read the disclaimer, it doesn't say anything about being a true crime investigator, sleuth, any of that. So, with all due respect to crime sleuths, that's not us. All right, let's get back to the business at hand, as we can agree that the point was made in the last few episodes. But then again, I think many are taking that a bit too lightly. It's not some typical YouTube drama. The chaos does not engage in that. This is about a murder case. That's the key point. And although one would say, why aren't you focusing on that murder case then, instead of engaging with Get a Clue, that's the very reason why. Integrity. If one claims something in regards to that very murder case, and it is wrong, that's one thing. But if someone claims something in regards to the murder case, which presents suspicion, then you have to understand your expectations of seeking some form of truth in that murder case can be greatly shut down. Someone mentioned this is also about freedom of speech. What if someone flagged the Chaos channel? What if someone reported the channel for misinformation in regards to the murder case, out of spite? What if someone reported this channel or any other channel to the FBI or the prosecution or the families? They already have my friends, and this makes it that much more important to address those who stand alongside you because you don't know if they can be trusted. Remember, this is a murder investigation, which was a cover-up. There are many channels that you view that may not be seeking justice for those housemates whatsoever. And I don't know about you, but it sucks when you find out one of your favorite content creators had manipulated you throughout that entire time frame. I would be pissed. But how do you usually find this out? Well, unfortunately, through the so-called drama. Simply put, you have to address those who are potentially damage control agents, because those are the tactics they use to shut genuine channels down, and the biggest crime, shutting down your free speech. So let's not just gloss over the quote, YouTube drama in the true crime community, because it has a great impact on how the truth within the true crime community can be presented. Thanks for hearing me out on that. In the Linda Lane surveillance, Get a Clue claimed there were 3 vehicles spotted. At 3:30 a.m., he claims there was a Chrysler 300 with a time frame from 3:30 a.m. to 4:05 a.m. Then, a white Hyundai Elantra was spotted at 4:05 a.m. approximately. Then finally, a Ford Fusion was spotted at 4:07 a.m. Now, we weren't just confronting Get a Clue about these time frames, but if you paid attention, we were also showing that one vehicle is likely to be the only vehicle circling those apartments. Let's focus on that time frame. I have a question. What time frame do you think the murders occurred? 3 a.m. or 4 a.m.? The reason for this question is to align which time frame with those 3 alleged vehicles being spotted. Obviously, there is a vehicle circling Queen Road apartments during the time frame of the murders, regardless if it's 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. Okay, so that was another point about those prior episodes. It is the importance of that time frame in the Linda Lane surveillance, which raised our temperature a bit against Get a Clue. First, 3:30 a.m. is considered a time in which the murders had already occurred, right? Okay, so who is likely to be spotted in this scenario? It wouldn't be the alleged Kohberger, because the murders had already taken place in this time frame. Also, to point, Get a Clue has provided a confusing dynamic about Kohberger. On some level, it's understandable, but at this point in the investigation, with all of the information, disinformation, and misinformation from the mainstream media and the authorities, it's hard to still be on the fence about it. The reason this is crucial to the investigation is because of the time frame. If he claims a white Hyundai Elantra was spotted at 4:05 a.m., then you are suggesting, no matter what you say or post, that this would be Kohberger's vehicle. Unless you're suggesting that vehicle was used to frame Kohberger. Pretty sure Get a Clue isn't pushing the envelope that far. I guess that's one of our, quote, wild speculations. But this would push the time of death ahead to approximately 4:15 a.m. to 4:25 a.m., which was the updated time frame Moscow PD gave due to the so-called DoorDash delivery and the TikTok activity on Xana's phone.
Maybe that's why he claimed it was a white Hyundai Elantra, right? I mean, he wasn't the first to suggest that was the vehicle. but nevertheless, it aligns with the updated time of death. The only difference is that the authorities allege that it's Kohberger the entire time, while Get a Clue claims the vehicle passes once. Not sure how that makes a difference either way. It's the vehicle of the alleged killer. There could be 20 cars spotted, but if Kohberger's vehicle was spotted once, which is so-called supporting evidence against him, with the DNA... let me stop. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Continue.
No problem. It was a good point. If this white Hyundai Elantra, which would be assumed to be alluded to being whatever Get a Clue would claim to be regarding Kohberger, then no other vehicle is more relevant than that one. Because it is the alleged killer's vehicle, he has been arrested and charged. He is sitting in court facing the death penalty. And that Linda Lane surveillance, which Get a Clue would claim to spot the same make and model, and color, by the way, is almost the same as being a witness. You see, he could take his so-called expertise on vehicles and claim a white Hyundai Elantra was spotted. Mind you, this is exactly what Gray Hughes did, remember? He was a guest on Court TV, claiming the vehicle spotted was in fact a white Hyundai Elantra and was Kohberger. He could be summoned as a, quote, video analysis expert, identifying the suspect's vehicle as evidence. Get a Clue claims Gray Hughes is incorrect. The white Hyundai Elantra was not spotted through that 3:30 a.m. to 4:07 a.m. timeframe, rather, only once at 4:05 a.m. So you still have the white Hyundai Elantra physically spotted in the surveillance, sir. Yes, through my evidential analysis, I have identified the white Hyundai Elantra. So, what's really your point against Gray Hughes, then? It seems to be insignificant, and to add, Get a Clue proclaims himself as somewhat of a car aficionado. Maybe he could be summoned as a car enthusiast who also was investigating the case and examining the Linda Lane surveillance. All he has to do is submit it to the prosecution. Since they already have Kohberger there that night, they would welcome his so-called expertise on that matter. But some would say, no, you're wrong, he's fighting for Kohberger. Okay, let's flip sides then. He would submit it to the defense in attempting to prove Kohberger's vehicle was spotted only once that night. This only hurts the defense. It does not help at all. Now bring that back outside of the courtroom and ask yourself, how is Get a Clue somehow claiming Kohberger is innocent? Actions speak louder than words, of course. But in this case, Get a Clue's words are speaking louder than his, well, words. But now that my colleagues sort of brought back the conspiratorial dynamic, I think those other vehicles were included to hide the fact that he claims a white Hyundai Elantra was spotted. It's kind of hard to just let this issue go because it's potentially linked to the very cover-up itself. Do you see? Anywho, the alleged Chrysler 300 would be circling the apartments, although they were a resident in the neighborhood. Going back to the original post, why would a resident be circling those apartments? If they stay in the apartments, what are they looking for? And even who are they looking for if they themselves live in the very apartments they're circling? Get a Clue's response was, I don't know, it's suspicious, but I can't say the resident was monitoring the victim's home. We just cut straight to the chase in his claim. Now, within this scenario, we basically presented the theory that the vehicle is involved in the murders, even within Get a Clue's claim of spotting that vehicle. Now, here's where things get really deep. We all can come to the conclusion that the alleged Chrysler 300 was involved in the murders somehow, right? A white Hyundai Elantra was spotted 30 minutes later. Then logic would suggest that the resident circling the apartments in the Chrysler 300 would have to be conspiring with the, quote, unidentified person driving the white Hyundai Elantra. They are not sightseeing, taking a tour of the luxurious neighborhood in the wee hours of Sunday morning. Come on. This time frame is during the murders. So Get a Clue's avoidance of that very scenario is basically a contradiction of even examining the surveillance to spot vehicles during that time frame. You see why we called him out? Let's fill in that blank. Kohberger would have to know someone in those apartments because they are both circling the apartments right next to the victim's home, even if we go with the 4 a.m. hour, you see? Now, since Get a Clue hasn't presented any type of evidential analysis based on this information, well, let's just move on to the next vehicle claimed to be spotted, the Ford Fusion. Again, the problem with Get a Clue claiming he literally identified this make and model raises questions big time. If you claim to spot a Ford Fusion, the same make and model of the unmarked cruiser approximately an hour earlier, what is the so-called evidential analysis of that identity? Don't recall him spotting a Ford Fusion as a resident, So it's a vehicle that is not from that neighborhood. I mean, we're just walking it all down. The vehicle is spotted at 4:07 a.m. Now, based on that vehicle not being a resident, this would mean the Ford Fusion entered the neighborhood from another location. Considering the time of its arrival, which is during the murders, any and everyone would come to the conclusion that it's the same Ford Fusion as the unmarked cruiser in the body cam. Yet Get a Clue somehow dances around this, claiming that it couldn't be the unmarked cruiser due to a 911 call around 4:15 a.m. And we obviously know why, we pointed it out, but let's just do it again. If the unmarked cruiser, or let's use Get a Clue's angle, if the Ford Fusion was spotted at 4:07 a.m., then its presence in the neighborhood and in that specific area near the victim's home obviously means the Ford Fusion was aware of those murders, albeit from a neighbor informant. Heck, even one of their own notified them. And that's where Get a Clue would end up if he just admits it's the same vehicle as the unmarked cruiser. But he knows this. That's why he plays dumb about it. A fool is someone that is shown mercy, but someone pretending to be a fool is rooted in deception, and they can't be trusted. You know, I don't want to get into a rant. My colleagues should finish this off.
Hold on, I'm sorry, but I couldn't contain myself. First off, there is nothing wrong with assumptions, opinions, hypotheses, theories, even claims. Claims, though, are considered facts, but most claims are simply someone's theory. Even if it's presented or perceived as a fact, if it's logical and backed by some form of evidence, it's not something anyone should be grilled about. What I have a problem with here, including those who are criticizing us for, quote, wasting time on this issue, is that you have to clarify things, you know? Individuals are claiming Get a Clue never claimed it was Kohberger's white Elantra in the footage. Now, with you making that claim, you are suggesting that he doesn't believe it was Kohberger's vehicle, right? In that scenario, a white Hyundai Elantra, which he identified ranging from 2011 to 2020, yes, that is the range as we have the receipts, this range obviously would be Kohberger's vehicle. Then you have the same color of Kohberger's vehicle. I mean, it doesn't mean Get a Clue is somehow a bad person or he has it out for Kohberger. If that's the vehicle he spotted and believed it was Kohberger, then so be it. You don't have to defend him in trying to make it seem as if he believes Kohberger is innocent, or better yet, wasn't physically there. You understand? See, I think the reason you all are doing that is because of the very suspicious dynamics we broke down. And since you're supporters or subscribers or simply think he does a great job, you feel it's important to establish he believes Kohberger is innocent and that he never claimed Kohberger's vehicle was there that night. But we have the audio. Get a Clue stated he was examining the Linda Lane surveillance, searching for the white Hyundai Elantra, but he identified a Chrysler 300. Keep in mind he stated, quote, he was trying to prove Kohberger was guilty. That statement needs to be clarified. Trying to prove Kohberger was there is different from trying to prove Kohberger was guilty in that general scope of evidential analysis. Although they both can be considered the same as a whole, the intentions are clearly different. One is saying, well, based on my examination, I believe Kohberger was there. Not sure if he's guilty of murder, though, but I will conclude that he was there that night. That's one perspective. The other, though, is trying to prove not only Kohberger was there, but also concluding that Kohberger is guilty of murdering those housemates, with his vehicle being identified. They're one in the same, in one sense, but separate in another, you understand. And of course, he also claimed that a white Hyundai Elantra was identified at 4:05 a.m. So at the very least here, you have Get a Clue, so-called confirming Kohberger was there. Why can't you all just accept that? These are his words. This is what he said in that video. To put it into perspective a bit more, Get a Clue claims the PCA is incorrect in claiming a white Hyundai Elantra was the vehicle spotted in the time frame of 3:30 a.m. to 4:07 a.m., right? Okay, guess what? He still has a white Hyundai Elantra spotted in his so-called evidential analysis. So the question that I pose to these individuals, whose white Hyundai Elantra is it then, if not Kohberger's? I mean, stop tiptoeing around that. And that tiptoeing, or shuffling of the feet, indicate there is something to hide. Now, does everyone understand why we have, quote, wasted so much time on this? And then we have the Ford Fusion, which is actually the most important vehicle being spotted, to be honest. He deflected from the scenario that this Ford Fusion could have been the vehicle spotted from 3:30 a.m. to 4:07 a.m. Again, and again. Get a Clue mentioned how the unmarked cruiser got a 911 call around 4:15 a.m. Now, this is his response to our claims. The unmarked cruiser was the vehicle circling the apartments from 3:30 a.m. to 4:07 a.m. 4:15 a.m. is not relevant to that time frame. That would be after. And honestly, they would have left around 4:15 a.m. anyway, as the murders had occurred within the 3 a.m. hour. Once everything had been, well, covered up, they left the neighborhood. Let's go back over it. The unmarked cruiser had finished with the guys around 3:15 a.m., right? This time frame, I think everyone can come to the logical conclusion. This was when the housemates were being attacked, or were even murdered. Okay, 3:15 a.m. is a key time to tack to the wall. If Get a Clue claims he identified a Ford Fusion at 4:07 a.m., there are several questions to this evidential analysis. Number 1, whose Ford Fusion is it? Okay, he doesn't know, right? Number 2, if Get a Clue claims the Ford Fusion would have had to spot the white Hyundai Elantra, which for some reason, wait a minute, bingo, that's him, claiming it was Kohberger's white Hyundai Elantra. We already proved that he claimed this, but even more evidence or evidential analysis. Physically, the Ford Fusion is spotted at 4:07 a.m., right? The white Hyundai Elantra was spotted at 4:05 a.m., right? Get a Clue states that the Ford Fusion would have had to spot the white Hyundai Elantra entering the neighborhood and also leaving the neighborhood. But everyone is claiming Get a Clue doesn't believe it was Kohberger's vehicle, right? Right? So if it's not Kohberger's Elantra, who cares if a Ford Fusion would spot it? Furthermore, who would be driving the Ford Fusion to even be concerned about the white Hyundai Elantra? You see? He is creating a scenario where a Ford Fusion had to see Kohberger driving in the area, at the same time not officially claiming it was Kohberger. And the Ford Fusion would be the same unmarked cruiser, which would have seen Kohberger enter the neighborhood and also leave. But he left out the most important time frame. Oh yeah. If the unmarked cruiser is in the neighborhood, were they following Kohberger? Seems like it, right? If they were following Kohberger, then he leaves the neighborhood and heads back to Pullman. Can't murder the housemates with a vehicle following me from Taylor into the neighborhood, even if Kohberger just thought it was a civilian. That vehicle, and the alleged Chrysler 300, and even Bonnie snooping around with the fake DoorDash delivery, are entirely too many vehicles at night, driving around in the neighborhood, for Kohberger to accomplish anything. He would drive into the neighborhood, other vehicles are already driving around, then a Ford Fusion also enters the neighborhood. Kohberger leaves due to the traffic. Too many potential witnesses. Talk about evidential analysis, right? Mind you, it was about a minute between the two vehicles. The unmarked cruiser entered the neighborhood for a reason, and we know it wasn't for a noise complaint or drunk college kids. Oh, we just went ahead and said that the quiet part out loud. Forget a clue, since he somehow was afraid to just say it was the unmarked cruiser. Why though? Why are you afraid to claim you spotted the unmarked cruiser? Is it because it contradicts Kohberger being there that night? And now you see why we called this person out. He is protecting Moscow PD by not identifying the unmarked cruiser, but will allude to Kohberger being there by spotting the make and model and color of the alleged killer. If it's the unmarked cruiser, then let's be real, Kohberger was not there. And if Kohberger wasn't there, then this means the vehicle spotted at 4:05 a.m. is also the unmarked cruiser. And if that's the unmarked cruiser, boy, it sure looks like that would be the same vehicle circling the apartments the entire time. We are not fucking around. We work too hard to be called out by someone who is executing damage control. That does it every time. I will say, to that person who claimed the Linda Lane surveillance is irrelevant as it doesn't prove anything and doesn't affect what's going on in the trial. Wow, I can't believe they made that statement. First of all, the Linda Lane surveillance is the only physical footage released that is physically, yes, did you hear me? Physically, during the time frame the murders occurred. Put it this way, the murders were occurring to the left of that surveillance camera. You don't think that's relevant? A DC agent, are you? I recall someone in the Kanika Jenkins case claiming that the window in the kosher kitchen wasn't relevant to the case. It's like a carbon copy of damage control. That window in the kitchen, which was smudged to block the other side around the corner, protected what really happened around that corner as Kanika headed towards the freezer. Yes, someone claimed that window was irrelevant. And this person is doing the same thing, saying the Linda Lane surveillance is irrelevant. It has audio of a physical altercation. Ethan's name was heard. A dog was heard barking. A male who had picked something up from the dumpster was seen walking towards Queen Road Apartments. There were individuals walking around near the parking lot. There were individuals spotted coming toward the camera near the units. There is so much in that surveillance that is linked to those murders. And that's not even including the vehicle spotted circling the apartments during the murders. But to that person claiming it's not relevant, they're saying it's not relevant to the case and definitely not relevant to the trial. Yeah, imagine the defense presenting Exhibit A to the court, examining the audio and all the other physical evidence in that surveillance before a vehicle was even spotted circling the apartments. And ultimately, they would point out that the vehicle in question has not been identified as Kohberger's vehicle by their own fucking admission. Okay, let's try to salvage the episode and end with a good vibe, because some of our audience doesn't like when we get like this. We do respect your thoughts, so let's bring back the good energy. I'm done.
Talk about a double-edged sword. Get a Clue is facing a triple-edged sword, right? 3 vehicles spotted only presents the setting where they all were involved in the murders or knew of them. And yet, even within that so-called evidential analysis, he won't even suggest this based on the time frame those vehicles were spotted. It was the Ford Fusion that was the only vehicle spotted. Oh, let's not outright claim something. It sounds so convincing. The Ford Fusion had been right down the street around the time frame the housemates were either being attacked or were about to be attacked, or even being murdered. We don't know where the unmarked cruiser went after 3:15 a.m. Keep that in mind. Does Get a Clue not see the small window here? They were there at 3:15 a.m., then the same make and model, and color, by the way, was spotted in the Linda Lane surveillance at 4:07 a.m. Just admit it was the unmarked cruiser already. The murders occurred within the 3 a.m. hour. The unmarked cruiser circled the apartments from 3:30 a.m. to 4:07 a.m., and who knows what they did after coming back around for that last time. But even based on Get a Clue's so-called evidential analysis, we know the Ford Fusion was monitoring the victim's home. To what degree? Who knows? Maybe they were involved, maybe they weren't, but it's for certain that they knew about the murders. Something Get a Clue, and others apparently, are shuffling their feet away from. We don't find dancing to be a good quality in a murder investigation. This is the Chaos Sector.